Alright guys, welcome back to the workbench. Let's start with part 2 of this turbocharger install. So I've got some new parts in front of me. Some of them I already had, and some of them I ordered because the parts I broke. Mainly screws. So we got a new stud here for the exhaust, a new bolt for the downpipe, and an oil drain gasket, which I had forgotten to purchase previously. However, I did already buy this nice Grimspeed turbo to manifold bracket and stock Mitsubishi exhaust manifold gasket. Lastly, after I had struggled with so many different bolts and fasteners trying to get the turbo out, I decided let's go ahead and upgrade the oil feed line. I'm gonna show you why, but first we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab the old turbo. We're gonna salvage off some pieces that we need. We need some of the lines and fittings, and we're gonna put them on this turbo. Alright, so I brought the old turbo over to the bench, and we're going to go ahead and salvage some of the lines off this. Mainly we need this coolant line. This is a coolant return, I believe. And we need this coolant feed, which wraps around onto the back. This is the oil feed line. We're not going to be reusing it, and the reason why is because it's bolted to so many places that are hard to get the bolts, and I figured I'll just replace this with the MAP oil feed line. So this one was hard to get out. You have to remove it from the block before you can pull the line out, and then this is where it attaches to the actual block to feed the oil. We are going to use the oil return, which is down here. We're going to put a new gasket on that. Alright, so we got all the lines on following the Garrett instructions. As you'll see here, I have the MAP feed line attached. I did not attach the filter yet. We're going to attach that to the car side, but we have to do some things first to prep the car before we can put this in. So, one of the things we need to do is right down in here, I already took one out. There's a stud, if you're following the MAP instructions for the manifold at least that I'm using, and then there's a stud over here we have to pull out on the end, this one. So we're going to double nut that, pull it out, and then I'm going to temporarily attach the the exhaust manifold to this so that I can have it hold the turbo up while I put in the lower support bolt. See that tiny little hole between the transfer case and the oil pan? That's the one. That's the one that's to get out. Alright, let's put it back in. Got it. That took a while. Alright, so before we can finish, we have to basically make sure we put an O-ring on this. When you get this, it might not have the O-ring on it. It might come 2 O-rings in the bag. This is the MAP Performance Turbo Oil Feed Line Kit. So we put the O-ring on there, put a little bit of this grease on here or oil or something to lube it up. Gonna tighten this sucker up, and then we're gonna go attach this to the banjo fitting in the line that I have in the car and bolt it on up to the block. Oh, and make sure you note the flow direction. So this side goes to the block on the banjo fitting like so, because the flow is going to come out of the block, go through here, then feed to the turbo. So the turbo line attaches here, this side attaches to the block. Alright, so you know, I didn't get a gasket with this thing, so basically I took the gasket off of the stock turbo. I have these curved scissors and I cut this little bit out of the inside so that when we put this on here it'll match up better. I guess you could use RTV or something, but this is what I'm going to do is I just cut this gasket and we're going to reuse it.
One eternity later.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah? You being my dogs? You gonna work on the car for me? You gonna fix this turbo issue? Please tell me you're gonna fix this turbo issue. It's driving me nuts. Alright, so after many hours of struggling with the bolts, I've decided to put some studs in instead. So this will help me align the manifold without tearing the threads up in the turbo, and the nuts should be easier to get on. So I put 3 new studs in. The last one we still have to use a bolt. It's okay, it should be easier, it's on the back side. So let's go ahead and try to put this manifold in. Okay. Woohoo! Finally got the bolts on. Dang nabbit. That was freaking difficult. Alright, so I'm trying to put this turbo housing to the block bracket on. And what I noticed is that on the 3-inch inlet from Force Performance, there's a little bit of interference here. And you can't line up this hole. So what I did is I ground out this hole a little bit with my Dremel, and I ground this side with a grinding stone also with my Dremel. If you had a bench grinder, you could probably just do this side real quick. We're going to see if we can get this to fit back on there now. Well, not quite. You take a little bit more off of here. All right, a little more grinding. Let's try one more time. All right, it's the third time a charm. Made the hole a little bit longer too. All right, finally got it in. Now we can tighten it down. Just so you guys can see what I was actually talking about, this bracket where that bolt goes in, down to the block, down there, that's the one I had to trim because you can see it rests against the housing, the 3-inch housing. Now the stock one's 2 3/4 or something like that, so it's a little bit smaller. It fits a lot better. But we made it fit, so we have one more support bracket, which is on the down pipe to put on. So let's get to it. Alright, so along with trimming the bracket to fit around the new intake elbow that's on the turbo, you pretty much need to get a 3-inch coupler. Depending on what intake you're running will depend on the other diameter, but since I'm running an ETS intake, it's already 3 inches, and now the inlet to the turbo is 3 inches, whereas before with the stock one, it's 2.75 inches to 3 inches. So we're going to stick this on there and install the intake and go. Let's get this upper intercooler pipe in next. All right, let's do this. Alright, you might have seen this as I was showing all the other video clips and wondering why I haven't put it on yet. Well, it uses this wire that's stainless steel, and it only came with a little bit. So before we put this on, we're going to make sure that everything back there is tight and heat cycled. There's no leaks. So we're going to go ahead and do all the normal stuff we would to get the turbo installed, basically get it running, refill the fluids, do a little bit of tuning, heat cycle it, tighten the bolts again before we go ahead and put this sucker on. But this is the Thermal Zero manifold blanket, which replaces the heat shield, has crushed lava rock in it. It's supposed to be pretty good. We're going to try it out because I haven't seen anyone else using it yet, so I'm going to be the first, or at least maybe one of the few. Alright, so I've got the oil feed line on. You can see the filter, it's angled down. I've got the drain and the bolt in, and we've got the downpipe support bracket, which I can't tell if you can see it. It's really dark in here. But we're pretty much done on the bottom. I even tightened up the downpipe bolts and put this shield right in front of us back in place. So let's go ahead and fill this thing with fluids while it's jacked up. So the radiator's at its highest point. We have to put some more fluid for the radiator, so coolant in. Need to bleed that. Need to also prime the turbo. So what we're going to do is pull the fuel pump relay fuse, and we're going to crank the engine over without any fuel to get it to prime the oil pump and prime the turbo. All right, we're going to crank the car for like, I don't know, 15 to 20 seconds without any fuel to get the oil flowing to the turbo. Alright, we're going to put a little bit more coolant in it too, and check for leaks before we go ahead and crank it, just to make sure the oil lines aren't leaking yet. Alright, moment of truth. Let's plug the relay back in for the fuel pump and see if it starts. So I know I said I wasn't going to put the turbo manifold blanket on, but I did just kind of see how hard it was to put in. Not too bad. I haven't tied it on there permanently because, like I said, I was going to check all the bolts after we warmed it up and heat cycled it a couple times. But as you can probably see a little bit in the video, there's going to be some burn off, obviously, because I've been handling that manifold and turbo with greasy hands. So there's just a little bit of smoke. It'll go away. Just take some time to burn off all the oil from your hands or any type of residues you got on it while installing it. But car seems to be running good. No smoke coming from the back, and we're going to check for leaks in one moment. Well, I've got it done. I'm just going to put the under tray on. I'm going to do that on my own time. And then the next step is going to be retuning. So a couple things you have to do. It's fuel, timing, wastegate duty cycles, kind of all at once. Although we're going to start by turning the wastegate duty cycle down. We're going to start at low boost and build up. And as we're building up, we're going to also tune the fuel. Then at the end, we'll probably go back and tune the spark curve with using the knock sum to tell if we have added enough spark in. All right, so that'll be the next episode. Until then, stay tuned. Thanks. Bye.